basically just a very quick foundation tutorial to basically expose to you guys how you have how you have actually heard web API and APIs everywhere every day, right? And how does it actually work, and how do you actually make an API request and handle it on the server side? So yeah, on so API, yeah, also known as application programming interface. I believe you have already heard this or seen this type of diagrams everywhere, but what is it? What is it actually is? So in short, API is just ways for two computers or two software components to basically communicate. So imagine you have two computers and you want to get some information from the other side, right? And at the same time, you probably are not sure about what type of information you're getting. So you have to have a very specific request structure or response structure so that you could make this process as smooth as possible. So there are actually a lot of APIs, and one of it is the web APIs, which is what we are going to talk about today. But something that I really want to talk about before going into web API is that API is not just limited to that HTTP thing that you fire through to the server and it returns something. So API could also be part of your development kit. So yeah, if you go look at, okay, maybe a very quick example is, you guys can see my browser, right? Okay, so if let's say I wanted to know what is a language is actually about. So yeah, as you can see right away, when I type Java Spring Boot, it comes up with API. So this API is not that API that you would expect to be exposed today, but this type of API is a little bit more detailed into what are the actual classes or packages that this language or this framework has. So yeah, without going too deep into this, just keep in mind that API doesn't just mean web API. That's why we really focus on web API today, right? All right, cool. So with that in mind, so let's move on. So let's come to this very generic diagram that you would see every day, whether in your course material, or just go through LinkedIn, go through Instagram. People will show this every time. So yeah, just keep in mind that API request and response, this whole communication process happens between two software components, right? So it could be a client to a server, or it could even be a server to a client. And yeah, you might think that server is a very difficult thing to handle, to comprehend, but in reality, server is just another computer lah. So you take it as another computer. And yeah, what we are doing today is we are trying to be the server, because we will fire a API request to ourselves, which is when we acting as the server, and how we handle it and how we return something meaningful or useful back to the client, which is ourselves also in this case. So all right, so this is what we call web API. And yeah, also moving on, if you really want to look deeply into what an web API are consist of, these are the things that I feel like is useful for you at this stage to know about. So web API, when people say API request, what is it really? So the first thing is you need to have that URL. URL includes the IP address, the port number, the endpoints, yeah, the queue and the query parameters, things like that. And coming together with that API, people will usually put a set of rules on top of it. So this set of rules are usually including your HTTP headers. So yeah, HTTP headers contains a lot of the how to say the necessary information for the server to know that, oh, this client is actually an authentic one. It's not just someone from random places lah. All right, and the HTTP method and HTTP request body. So all of this may seem very vague to you, but it will come to light soon, I hope. Yeah. So all right, so when the server returns something back to the client, so it will usually just have very simple stuff like HTTP status code and HTTP request body. Sorry, response body. So these are the things that Sorry, this is not all, but these are the things that we will care about mainly, right? Okay, cool. So, and yeah, same thing again, but now we give it a name. So we have API, we have web API. So within web API, we have this thing called RESTful API. So you might have seen it elsewhere and you are feeling confused about, so what is API, what is web API, what is RESTful API? So what's the difference, right? So in short, RESTful API is what everyone is actually practicing today because it comprises of all these rules. So you have to have a header, you have to have a header, you have to have like token ID, session ID, methods, request body, stuff like that. So this set of rules are what making this API, the whole communication protocol, more secure in the sense. Yeah, so normal API, people will also still call it API lah. When you maybe you go to interview, the people will ask you, oh, do you know web API? So yeah, that's what they're talking about. So usually people won't purposely mention the word RESTful. So yep, that's about it. So to give you a sense in terms of the big picture of how everything works, right? So yeah, you can imagine a simple browse to Facebook, to Google, to whatever favorite website that they have. It doesn't necessarily go through just one server. So you have maybe you have server A, server B, server C. So the point that I'm trying to say here is API request is everywhere, right? And yeah, you have to and actually it's mainly make up all of the websites that we have today, and learning it will be a very good resources, that a very good advantage that you have in hand the next time you want to look for a job, or basically just want to skill up your web programming skills. So yeah, this will come into like very very soon. All right, so moving on. So let's go. Let's move into the second section of the topic that I want to talk about today. So first, we already know what an API is, what a web API is specifically, and second part is we need to know how to make it work. What type of what type of programming language should we use, and on top of the programming language, what are the tools are they are to actually help us. So yeah, I hope the agenda today is enough for me to talk about both of these. Perhaps I would spend half an hour talking about API, which I already did. So it's only 10 minutes. So yeah, API one part, and really to bring you into the programming language and the framework that we are really using today, which is Java and Spring Boot. Maybe this part I'll spend around half an hour, 45 minutes. And bear in mind, it's basically impossible to cover everything about Spring Boot in one of this just one session. So this is merely just an introduction and exposure to you guys, so that after that you can go and explore more by yourself, right? All right, cool. So as I mentioned, people prefer each type of languages, right? So first we have JavaScript, a very famous language that already has a lot of frameworks built up. You can imagine React, Vue, Angular, or even the latest one, Swap. I don't know how to spell it, but if you guys want the resources, I can compile it and put it into the Discord channel or whatever. So right, so we have JavaScript, we have Java, we have Python. We actually have a lot more. Believe it or not, C and C++ can actually build. You can actually build API from them as well, but it would just be, I would say, more difficult because you have lesser resources. The tools might not be that advanced, or that is something that I'm wrong about. So feel free to correct me. So something that I really know to heart is JavaScript, Java, and Python are the three main ones that people use to build APIs lah. So what is API? What are everything? So usually APIs are included in something we call backend application. So yeah, so these are the tools that we are using it to build backend application. Then inside of the backend application, we will have one part of it that is handling the API request. So that's the main point, right? So for Java, something that I have experience with is Express.js. So once you have any frameworks of your choice, maybe you are using plain JavaScript, that could work also, right? So on top of plain JavaScript, you import this library. So with the help of this library, it's gonna make your life more easier. It's gonna help you have all those predefined methods that you can just plug and play with, and eventually have an backend application that can handle API requests. So for Java, it's the same thing. We have Spring Boot, which is what we are going into today. So if you want to build API backend application in a sense using Java, plain Java itself, I don't think it's possible, and I also don't think it's impossible, but it just make it way harder. So Spring Boot as a framework, sorry, as a library, it comes in and it helps our life to be much more easier lah. But yeah, this whole thing here requires a much more complicated setup. Same goes to every other language. So we will actually go into each of that. So hopefully by the end of today, you are able to write a very simple backend application of your own. So yeah. All right. Lastly, we have Python. Python also has a library that you can use, which is called Fast API. So yeah, these are just, maybe you haven't heard of it, maybe you have seen it somewhere, but these are just tools that can help you. So it's okay to not know them now, or it's okay to not know them during interviews, because everything is actually more or less the same thing as long as you know the concept of it. So yep. So up until now, do you have any questions? All right, cool. So no questions, no requests, but feel free to do so if you have anything in mind that you really want me to explain before moving on. All right. So that's actually all of the slides that I have. Yeah, I don't I have never prepared a very nice slides lah. So but I hope I'm more towards to really show you guys how to do it, guys. So all right, so cool. So let's shall we move on to the screen share. I believe I'm not in the screen share for screen. I'm sharing that app only. Okay, can you guys see my screen now? All right, cool. Can. All right, cool. So let's start very quickly. So yeah, since you are using Java Spring Boot, right? So let's start by how do we set up Java in our local system. So to really start using Spring Boot, the first thing we must have is Java JDK, or yeah, Java JDK lah, basically. With this Java JDK, you can run any sort of Java application on top of it. So I believe this part you already know very much. You already know very well about it. So let's really move on. So for me, I will personally use Java 17. So Java 17, then you can go to a simple Google search will bring you to Oracle page. Then you can download whatever that is suited to your OS. So how to verify whether it's there or not? You can use the term Java version. So yeah, so that's it. So in Windows, you might have the Oracle thing built in, which somehow will always default your JDK version to 1.8 or something. But that is nothing to be worried about as long as you have the JDK kit that you want to work with, then you will be good to go. Yeah, and this thing is not, it doesn't need to be fixed to 17. You can use 11, you can use 20, you can use 21, the latest one. Just that later on in your IDE, in your project settings, that's what you need to be configuring about so that it can run lah, basically. So Java focuses a lot on this versioning stuff for it to be even running. Right? So first thing, Java. Then second thing is you need an IDE, right? So IDE, personally, I would love to use IntelliJ IDEA, because IntelliJ IDEA is just a life-changing tool. Because in any other tools like VS Code, you are lacking a few features here and there that would, yeah, perhaps initially you look at it, you feel like, oh, I can just do these few things manually, right? But with better IDE coming in, like IntelliJ IDEA itself, it will actually make your development experience much more smoother lah. Maybe you cannot relate now, of course, because you haven't used it before. So yeah, that's what the industry is actually recommending about. So IntelliJ IDEA. So yeah, of course, this thing has a paid version. So don't use the paid version one. You're supposed to use where is it? Community edition. Yes, correct. Community edition. You just click on download. So of course, I already have everything set up here, so I wouldn't be going through the setup process exactly, but you can, I believe it's just a very simple thing. Yeah, a simple Google search, YouTube video will guide you. Oh yeah, of course. And also one more thing is, not sure if you guys have the GitHub Education Pack, because once you have this, then IntelliJ is supposed to give you a student license that you can use. So let me try. I think I still have it. I forgot my password. All right, fun fact. Yes. So JetBrains product pack for students. So JetBrains is the main company that developed IntelliJ IDEA. So under this, when you have GitHub student developer pack signed up, once you're verified in GitHub, then you can go to JetBrains account. Then basically you need to request sign up. Also another registration process to get this license pack. So in here you have a lot of things uh, like WebStorm. WebStorm is for JavaScript, React, and Angular. Then PyCharm is for Python, obviously, and IntelliJ IDEA is for Java. Then you even have their own SQL editor kind of thing, which is called Java Data Grid. So yeah, once you have this, it's gonna make your life easier. But for some reason, I'm not using it in locally. I'm not sure why. I'm still using Community Edition, but that will work. So yeah, so that's about it. So once you have these two things set up, so right now is the time for us to look at how do we want to have Spring application, right? Spring Boot application in more specifically. So whenever to make Spring application, Spring Boot, I mean, Spring and Spring Boot has a very indestructible relationship between them, but just understand the both thing as the same thing lah. For now, right? So Spring has already prepared a very nice platform for us to know, for us to get started with all of our project development right away, right? So once you go to this start.spring.io, start Spring.io, basically Spring Initializer, you can choose your own build tools. So these are called build tools. You have Gradle and Maven. Like I said, everything here seems very blurry right now because it's impossible to cover everything in one session. So let's just go with all of the default that me as a programmer I prefer to use, and at least you get one side of preference, right? So maybe the next time you go to YouTube videos, they have another preference. The people that have another preference. So that's when you get exposed to different type of setup. But today I'll be using Maven because Maven is very good for me. Yeah, except a lot of people say the build time is very long lah. So yeah, I don't care about that. So for Spring Boot version, usually snapshot here is one of the versioning keywords. So when you see snapshot, means that thing is not perfect yet. So these are the things that they put it out there to give you a certain preview. Then perhaps if you are yeah, to give a certain preview. So if you want the best performance or most stable performance, choose the one that doesn't have the word snapshot, right? So yeah, I'll go with 3.1.7. So yeah, the group here is, okay, this is much more difficult because usually if you're working in a company, they will give you they'll have already, they'll already have their own metadata configuration all set up for you, like com dot, usually this goes to project name, project name, sorry, I think it's organization name. Then you have the artifact is then the project name, right? So in the end picture, the whole thing will look like this: com dot organization name dot project name. But that is something that it's not our worry now because I believe this metadata is useful only when you really want to roll out the application. Right, cool. So for now, I'll just simply set it to Zach Lee with my name, okay? And for this web API foundation. Okay, and the description here, pretty much just leave it there if you want. If you don't want, then okay. Then the packaging, I will always go with jar file, right? Jar file. And like I mentioned just now, oh yeah, Spring Initializer only give you options for 17 and 21. I believe that's the restrictions that Spring has. So it's either 17 or 21. I'm not familiar with 21 because there are too many new features, so I'll go with 17. Okay, cool. Okay, then should I add dependencies right now? Because uh, yeah, sure, let's do it. Okay, so yes, like I mentioned, Spring or Spring Boot, it's a framework. So the key framework here is like a land, like it's like an empty land for you to build a house on top of it. So, but to build a house on top of it, you need all those pillars, all those walls, all those bricks and stuff. So that's what they call dependencies. So you can simply understand it as libraries lah. So when you're building JavaScript, you will need libraries like React. React is a framework. So on top of React, you have React punya library. I don't know what's the name, but yeah, that's the essence of it. So for our demo, for our foundation tutorial to go smoothly today, first thing first we need is Spring Web. As you can see, it says build web including RESTful application using Spring MVC. Blah blah blah. Tomcat as the embedded container. So doesn't care about that. Just RESTful. As long as we see RESTful, then we go for it. Right. Then perhaps moving on. Okay, let's bring Lombok in. Right. Lombok. I'll show you how it works later on. And what else do we need? Database. Not sure if you have time for database, but okay, I'll bring it in, but I'm not sure whether we have time for it. So that will come later. And dev tools need what else? That's all right. Mapping, abstract. I need to set up. Okay, so let's just go with this few first. Then later on we can add on more one actually. Right. So once you're done with all of this configuration, you can go ahead and generate. So yeah, it will be coming in as a zip file. So you can download. Okay, so I have it here, and right now I should extract all. Let's see, where do I want to put this? Sorry, you guys have to go through my directory management. Okay, let's just. Oh, cool. It has a project name set up for me. All right, nice, nice. So once you have this done, we have extracted it just like any other repo or yeah, repositories that you have. You can now click on it. Oh, yeah. So open folder as integer commission project. Okay, let me just quickly close this unused project. And yeah, we are good to go. So okay, right away, something that you can see very different from your regular Java project is that Spring Boot comes with a lot of all these very default files that you have like .maven. What is all these? Wrapper, maven wrapper. Okay. Even I myself, I'm not too sure about all this, what is working behind the scene lah, but it's good to know a little bit about it. And yeah, you have your maven command prompt here, and you have a git ignore coming in. And the main thing here is under the source folder. So every time you work with, you are looking at the source folder, right? Source package, or in this sense, right? Source package, and you have your main package. Then under that you have your Java. So this all your main code will be. So this whole thing will be your main code. And under your resources, this is what Spring Boot has its own configuration all set. So you can see application properties. So later on, yeah, we might or might not be seeing us using this, but it's good to have you guys know that this file here is very important when you are working with Spring Boot. So yeah, so by default it will be coming with the main application, if you will. So the main application, the naming also, they do it nicely for us already. So web API foundation. Yeah, but this is from our name that we set in the website, right? Which is this one. The only difference is they capitalize this. I don't quite like it. So let's rename that. Should be, yeah, so this comes to the a bit of the Java best practices lah. So whenever for class name, you are going to capitalize the first letter of every word. So yeah, perhaps some people like to do it like this, web API foundation. But personally, I don't see a difference. So it's just web API foundation application. So little bit of my own perfectionist practice here. Don't mind me. So yeah, there we have it. So really, if you were to run this file right now, I hope it doesn't conflict with any of the. Okay, okay, as you can see, it's not your regular JavaScript project lah. So oh, okay. Oh, error configure data source URL contribute is not. Oh, okay, I know what's going on. Because we have JPA in place, so it expects us to have a database. Nope. So let's comment that out very quickly and rebuild the project. Okay, right. Okay, cool. So yeah, we have nothing in this project, so it runs fairly faster than what I usually would see lah. So over here, it has a lot of information. Once you have your code there, it will be even more information. But the main thing that we want to see is started blah 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 in seconds. So this is the key thing that you need to see, look for to verify that your app is up and running. So by default, it will be using this portal. Sorry, it will be using this pod. So pod is also another terminology that API would usually have. So how to say? So for every machine, so this machine, this whole thing, it's a machine, right? So it has its own IP address. So on top of this machine, you can expose a lot of pods. So meaning you can have 8081, 8082, so on and so forth. So these are just one of the pod that Spring Boot or Spring itself choose to expose the application to. This is a default setting lah. So if you don't like it, you can always change it here. Yeah. All right. Cool. So right now, if we do a quick, sure. Yeah, if you do a quick localhost 8080 to the port that Spring Boot says it exposed the application to, you'll see this page. You'll see this white label error page. Well, you might take it as an error, but I take it as a good news because this actually means that our app is up and running because it hit our application. So this browsing here, it was supposed to be an API request, but since we do not set the application to handle any API request, so right now it is just showing us an error. So once we have an API endpoint, we fire it using the right endpoint, right query parameters and stuff. It will return some useful information lah. So right. So that's about it. And yeah, also on the side note, I'm not sure whether you guys are following through the coding process or if you prefer to do it afterwards. So yeah, whichever suit you guys, right? I don't want to restrict you all to say like, hey, you must follow on the spot because to be frank, I'll be going quite fast because yeah, I hope you're not out of time. So that's about it. So you can, and whether or not this session is recorded, is it recorded, cockpit or no? Oh, okay, cool. So yeah, you have your recordings ready for you afterwards. So cool. That should do it. Okay, so before we start developing a real API endpoint, so to say, let's look a bit on the pom.xml lah. So yeah, pom.xml here is also very important. If you're from JavaScript, this is basically your, what's that called? The main thing, the package JSON, yes, package JSON. So this equivalent of that. So in here you have your parents. So yeah, you're using Spring Framework, of course. So you have your Spring Framework parent, and you're using version 3.1.7, which is what we are opt for in the beginning, 3.1.7. If you're 3.2.1, then you're 3.2.1. Of course, you can change it anytime. Like my company, my team prefer to use 3.1.4 because it's more stable. So just a preference. Okay, then after that, this thing here means closing tag lah. Alright, so I think I know this. Okay, so this group ID, artifact ID, the name, it's all based on what we set here. So everything here is quite important. And the description also, it follows exactly what we set in the Spring initializer, right? So properties, you have a Java version. Yes, so this is what I talk about. So once you have Java version here, in order for us to run this application, we need to also have JDK 17 installed in our local environment. So yeah, so if you go and click on project structure, and you can see all of the SDK that is present in your local machine. So for me, I have Java 8 and Java 17. I'm not sure about you guys, but yeah, 1.8 I think is default one that must come with everything. Oh, I also have 11. It detects for me, but no, we are not using that. We are using 17 today, so that should avoid us from any issues. Okay, then we have our dependencies list. So dependency list, as you can see, it starts here and it ends here, and everything inside here is a library, so to say. So you have your Spring Boot starter JPA. So this is for database connection and stuff lah. That's why it causes the whole thing to fail initially, because it expects a database. And this thing is our main thing to web. Everything here must come. Every method, everything that we use are actually coming from this package. Then we have Lombok. I'll show you what is for afterwards. Then we have starter test. So this is something that it's a bit default that comes with Spring Boot. So yeah, that's just a very surface introduction to everything, because it's impossible for me to go through everything lah, because you can see the scope here. There are different libraries, and yeah, but for sure, if you have any questions, just leave it down there. Okay, so then you have your build text. So inside this build text, it will tell what it will tell Maven, because we choose Maven as our build tool, right? So it will tell Maven what to do with this project once we have clicked on this start just now. So okay, I'm not too sure what is all this, but just take it as something that comes in package with Spring Boot. So yeah, I myself don't understand this, so I don't think to build an API endpoint at this stage, you don't need to understand it as well. So that will be further on when you're senior or something, right? Okay, so let's pause this application from running real quick. So let's just start coding right now. So yeah, very exciting. Okay, so sorry, let me just drink a bit of water. The heck? Why got all this comment? I don't relate. It's okay lah. Okay. So API endpoint. So right now, only right now we are going into the main topic, but it's okay lah. Bear with me. Okay. So first we need to have our main Java class. So let's call it my first endpoint. Okay. So then your good old it's back to your good old Java basic right now lah. So everything is a class, and inside the class you can expose different class members and different class methods. Those are the things that we will focus on. So it's really back to the basic already. Right. So but in Spring Boot we utilize a lot of annotation. So yeah, so annotation, what are those is basically something like this. So you have your REST controller. Okay, so this is one annotation that we need to expose this whole class as an endpoint. Then perhaps we can have a request mapping, right? So a good practice of building API would be to have a version. And what is this whole endpoint for? For now we have nothing, right? So we just say, let's just say, oh, hello. I don't know. Yeah, never mind. Let's just put it empty. Leave it as it is. Okay, then inside here, so we need to have an method that returns a string. Say, okay, let me say hello. Good old example. Hey, if it works, it works. So in here, the main thing you want to return is hello world. So right now, for this method to become one of the endpoint that we want, we need to use another annotation called get mapping. So get mapping, give it a name, test. Never mind. Hello world. Okay. So yeah, as you can see, there's a green line here. The ID is telling you, hey, this one, the grammar a bit not good. Or yeah, but it really comes a lot of preference again lah, because for API endpoint, some people would prefer to separate the words using a minus sign, but some would say, oh, cannot, everything must be in lowercase letter, or some would say can be something like this. I think this is the worst one lah. Okay, but let's just stick with hello world. I like everything lowercase. So yeah, that actually should do it. So right now, if we run this, okay, okay, then if we go to that, where's this logo here? But never mind. If we go to that endpoint that we set exactly hello world, yes, right now it works. So yeah, that is just as simple as this lah. So if you go to the plain old, the root endpoint, sorry, the root URL as we call it, you'll get an error page because we have not set the application to handle this endpoint, right? But if right now we have slash v1 slash hello world, so if we have exactly these two things together, it will oh, it will then work. Yeah. So if you have only have v1, it also would work because we didn't set anything to handle this thing. When it hits to here, the application says, I have never seen this. So right, that's the essence of it. And what else I want to say here? Right, so right now it's doing a very simple operation, a very simple API request. As you can see, it's get here. So perhaps a few comments would be useful. So this is a get method. So yeah, as I've mentioned just now, a few things that we need to take care about when we are building API is that maybe let's just close that. Okay, so our URL was localhost 8080. Okay, then the query parameter, we haven't gone into that. And the HTTP header, which is something that I will bring you guys through, but let's just see everything, how everything works in a very smooth method now. So, so then you have our request body, which is something that we have not gone through either. So right now we have already covered URL and HTTP method, sorry. So that's that. So yeah, you might actually you might actually starting to find it very unrealistic to debug and develop API endpoints using web browser itself, right? And yeah, you are totally correct because no one does that. And the whole purpose of doing this is to show you how it actually looks like. So to properly debug and develop API endpoints, you will need another tool called Postman. So I think this is the third tool you have heard today, right? First Java, then IntelliJ, then Postman, right? So Postman API platform. I believe some of you guys have heard it, some have not. And yeah, very interestingly, this is the universal. Why do I have all this? Oh, never mind. This is a universal. A lot of people actually use this platform to develop and test their own API backend application in short. So Postman. So I same thing. I have it installed locally, so I would not bring you guys through the download process again. But just one good tool to help you out. In fact, later on when we go to it, right now it's get right. This right now is get right. But later on when we move to post request post method, web browser will no longer help us to achieve that because web browser only can process get lah if you really uh, use it. Yeah, kind of weird, but okay, open. Yeah, these are the four mainly used one. In fact, I have not used other than these. Even though I've already started working as a full time, but maybe I'm wrong. Again, maybe I'm wrong. So yep. And let's create a workspace, right? And so I don't know. Call it like mama or uh, all your events. Personal. Great. Yeah. So we have this, and perhaps a new collect bits here. Okay, same thing. If we do what we were doing just now, localhost 880 slash v1 slash hello world. Then we send it. Yeah, so we can get our string back. So the hello world string that we are anticipated for. So right now, I believe you can perhaps see it more clearly already because from the web browser itself, there's no behind the scene information. But in Postman, you can see you have a header, so 7 hidden. So these are the things that Postman already configured for us during firing lah. So very good. And yeah, there's nothing particular that I am looking for here, but let's check console. Yeah, okay. So a very quick opening to the console shows us how this thing actually works. Impressions. Okay, the thing I'm trying to look for here is that I'm trying to tell you guys that right now I'm actually firing API from this machine back to this machine itself. So that's basically what happens when you are developing something, right? You are using your own local machine as the development machine. So in reality, in real world, this thing doesn't should not be localhost. It should be a real IP address that points to a port somewhere in another computer that would then do the same thing, process the API, returns a meaningful response. But right now, as of development progress, we are doing everything locally. So yeah, that's about it. In case you are confusing about like, hey, I thought we need server. I thought we are pointing something to server, but yeah, that for me that's something that I'm very confused about lah. So where's the server, right? But nowadays, with the power of our own computer, server is our own self lah. In fact, this computer itself can be a server if it's running 24/7, right? So that's about it. So we can close the console. Then yeah, I think that's not all. That's not all, of course. But I think that's everything that we should know about right now before moving further. So I think we can take a quick 5 minutes break now. Yeah, or you guys have any questions, you uh, can just shoot it out right now before I move more further. Oh yeah, by the way, not sure if yeah, I think it's our we didn't actually do much survey on the how much do you know, right? So just want to get a quick show hands of how much how many of you guys think that everything I'm talking about here is completely new, or you have already know half of it, the other half is just through demonstrations and stuff. Please let us know because yeah, we're trying to make this thing useful for you guys as well lah. If you are, as you can see, for me myself, these are the things that no syllabus has exposed me to, and this is the exact thing that I am working with in my company, in my job, day to day job nowadays. So it should actually be achievable to teach you guys all this lah. So we are trying to be here to play that role. So that please do tell us, yeah. Oh, completely new. Cool. Hope it helps. Maybe your interview will ask you build a Spring Boot. At least my interview does. The current company that I'm working with, right? The assessment is to build a real Spring Boot application with database connected and stuff. But just a very simple one lah, just to see where you are. Yeah. All right. Cool. So yeah, like I said, 5 minutes break. Let's do this because I need to run to the toilet. So see you guys at five lah, maybe. Yeah, 9 minutes. Hello. Okay. I, yeah, IP config. I'm not sure whether I should show it up really. You guys are not hacker, right? Okay, so anyways, let's move on for now. So right now, as you can see, we have our own the very basic API endpoint lah. So actually that would be all really, but to go one step further is to really get ourselves familiar with how Spring Boot actually handles, because right now it's just one endpoint, right? So you might have two endpoints, three endpoints, 20, 30. So it all comes down to project structure, how you really organize everything inside a very complex project that you have. And it's not always about string. It's always it could be very specific thing about your custom class, custom data class. So just bear in mind, from now onwards, everything that I'm gonna say is a bit more into Spring Boot itself. So if after that you are exploring JavaScript or Python, there will be similar things, but it will not always be the same. Yeah, just keep that in mind. Okay, cool. Let's move on. So right now we have done a get. I think, yeah, maybe let's do a few lah. Let's do a few. Let's do that four thing. Okay, I'm not sure how we do. All right, never mind. So let's have another class. So this time we call it my first post endpoint. So that one is my first endpoint, right? Should be my first get endpoint, but never mind. So same thing. We need to have our REST controller. This basically makes it so that the Spring Boot sees this class and it knows that this is supposed to be an endpoint. And let's call the post example. Yeah, public. This time we are not gonna return anything, so let's just return void. Um, Uh, receive info. So let's call it receive info method. Then from here, what it should take is it should actually take a string from us. Take a string from us called name, maybe message. It's more easier that way. So for this message to be understood properly, you need once again, another annotation. So as you can see, Spring Boot is all about annotations. Without all those annotation, you really can't live. And also, if you are really curious, you can see all this annotation. They're actually a interface. Uh, yeah, this is not interface class, but this is the class that represent an annotation, and this is the library or this is the framework that it comes with. Package, sorry. So if you see organization, Spring Boot, web bind, annotation. So perhaps sometimes when you see all this in red line or you can't find your annotation at all, you can go back to refer to pom.xml. So usually they will have information here that tells you whether or not the class that you're looking for is here, right? Uh, so now I think this is the one that causing all this annotation to be there. So if I try to comment it and rebuild the project, will it fry up the whole thing? Yes, it will. Yeah, because right now all of this thing it's just simply not inside these libraries. Yeah, their eyesight lah. It's not in their view, so they cannot comprehend what is all this. So once you have exposed this to the library, then everything should come back magically. So okay, so then we need to have our post mapping. So just now we use get mapping, right? Get mapping something something. So now we use post mapping. So give me info. Okay. So what we are going to do with that information, this message here is, let's just do a system out a inline of that message. Pass. Okay, so then that should work now. So since the app is running right now, yeah, there's a bit of downside for Spring Boot lah. Since the app is running now, so right now, even though we have written the new code for it, but if you go to Postman and you really fire this thing, it won't actually work because the Spring Boot basically it simply needs a restart for it to work lah. So post example and post inside the parameters we have message and we have value hello world. Yeah, it will tell you not found. I'm not sure why it's like this, but yeah. This time instead of returning a string like here, it returns a JSON object. So a JSON object is actually the correct way to go. A string returning a string is just an example that a very simple example that I want to show you guys lah. Okay, so it will say blah 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 errors not found. Okay, never mind, because we have to restart the application simply for it to show. So let's stop it. Okay, as you can see, now we have more endpoints. The loading is getting a little bit slow, right? Oh, okay. Yeah, sorry, my bad. Trying to have this give me info. Yes, so right now, as you can see inside our own terminal, this is called running what's it called? Running console. Okay, never mind. Inside the run here lah, run tab. So since we set the thing to receive a message, then after that we print it out. So that's what happened internally. But externally to the caller, which is us as well, but in the future it might be your end user. So for your end user, since you are returning a void, so they are actually basically receiving nothing, right? So whereas in this first endpoint, since you are returning a string, what they will be getting is a string, right? If I fire again, string. If I fire again on this one, void, so nothing. So what you choose to return to your user is also very straightforward, something that you can set here lah. Okay, then uh, that's about it. So then after that, post. Let's do a post. Post and wait, what? Oh, sorry. What's the third one again? See, I didn't even use it that frequently, so I didn't know. Update. Okay, okay. It's not put, man. Yeah, let's go with put. Put. So you want put example. So as you can see, you can start seeing the pattern right now. Yeah. And something. I don't know. So also let's take in a request param. So you see that's where IntelliJ is very good. It display out all the possible methods. I know VS Code also got, but it's just not as good as IntelliJ. I don't know, maybe it's my feeling. Okay, so request parameter, we take something uh info. Yeah, that will do. Put mapping, and this should be update. Oh, uh, bad practice. So it should give us an info. Let's just have a okay. Let's just have a private string my info. So give it an initial value of hello world. Then once we have this info, my info should be updated to what is that info, and we displayed it out. Then since you are returning a string, so different from just now, since you have void, right? So in Java, if you have void, you don't need to return anything. But if you have string, then IntelliJ will tell you, hey, you need to return something, right? Not return info, of course. Success. So give back the end user a bit of hint, telling them it works. Okay. Okay, so let's stop and rerun. You have get, post, put, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, I'm just gonna do until post, sorry, put, update. Alright. Then our param is called info. Then let's just say hello, VMS Technology. Running, right? Okay. Running. Go. Oh, something's wrong. Put example. Okay. Okay. Hello. There's no error showing. V1. Okay, why? Oh, got bug already. Don't know what happened. Oh, sorry. What are we doing? We don't have the REST controller. Okay, so started, then move on. Success. Then right now it should show us hello UMS Tech Mama. Oh, perhaps I should print the old one out real quick. Or sense, then yes, before and after. So yep. To be honest, fundamentally, I'm not sure how having get mapping, post mapping, and put mapping makes the difference, but just keep in mind that get mapping is the most simplest one. So when you have get method, you cannot have request body. You cannot have something called request body. Right? This is prohibited. But with post, but with anything other than get, actually, you can have a request body, which is something that we have not covered so far. Right. Okay, so now let me think about how should we proceed because okay, whether I should go into project structure first or let guys know what is queue. All right, I think let's do a quick. Yeah, let's do a quick reorganization of things first before we move further. So yes, I believe that will be the best. So right now, as you can already tell, the pattern is to go on and on and on. And once you have a new endpoint, a new controller that you want to expose with a different name, you will need to have a new class. So what happens is you're gonna have a lot of classes, a lot of other classes lying around, and that's just making the whole thing very unacceptably messy lah. So in Spring Boot, what are the usual practice is that we would have three packages. So first thing is we call it controller. Second is service. Sorry, that was not my intention, but package is. Then the last one, oh, usually if we are not working with database, we do not have the last one, but sure. Okay, so yeah, um, if you have really noticed in the in the Spring Initializer. So as you can see, we are using Spring MVC. So MVC here basically means this thing lah. We have a model. We don't have view because we are not in charge of the view here, but Spring Boot is capable of doing that as well. But I don't think that's something that I want to go into. But we have the model and controller here. So these are the main important things. So if let's say today I were to organize my thing nicely, every class that has REST controller should go under the package REST controller. Should go under the package controller. So controller, then the service and model will come later, right? Okay, so now let me think, let me think. Connect database. That take too long. Never mind, let's just do one more. Okay, since these three are the examples, right? So let's not touch them now. So let's have a brand new controller and really implement every best practices on it, because everything that you see just now was not something best. Okay, can imagine we have a user. Yeah, we are handling a bunch of users. So in this user controller, going to be a REST controller, and the request mapping going to be something more serious. So V1, the API V1 user. Oh yeah, one more thing is some people may tend to name their endpoint with plural or singular, but yeah, for me it's singular all the way lah. Okay, so right now, instead of returning plain string, like I mentioned just now, this is just not good practice. This whole thing is not good practice, because by right, an endpoint should have a JSON as a response. So we are going to make use of Spring Boot Punya library out of the code. So then we basically can have a more structurized lah. So response entity means it's gonna return. Yeah, it's just making use of a Spring Boot, a Spring Framework HTTP protocol actually. Yeah, so inside it, perhaps we can have our own basic class based response. I don't know. So this one is yeah, all users. So let's give it a get mapping all. So as you can see, base response is not something that we have right now. So we should really create a class for it. So where is this? All this common class goes under. Go under here. And yeah, right now is the also another very basic Java thing. Inside base response, you might have your response data, let's say, and the status, and your what's it called, error, and let's just use a local date time for timestamp. Okay, so another benefit of Spring Boot is if you have all this, right, currently you have no way to get and set them because you do not have the getter and setter class. And to write them is actually wasting time and wasting line of codes lah. So what Spring Boot has is, remember the library Lombok? Yes, so Lombok is over here. This Lombok. So this is going to help us auto-generate everything that we need. So we just bring in data and we bring in all args constructor and no args constructor. These two are actually optional lah, but if you want to have it, it's a good thing to have. But the data is the most important. This data here will generate all of the getters and setters for us, right? And user controller right now is it's good now. It's letting us pass because we have all this. Yeah, let me think. How should I have a dummy set of data? Maybe a list of user db log data. is okay. Perhaps I should leave it here. So now, same thing. We need to have a user class under model. And let's say this user class we have all of this. So then name, uh, what are we tackling with? I don't know. Let's do normal height, weight. Okay, height, weight. Then, oh, sorry. Okay, height in cm. Let's see this integer. And also, oh, covered, covered, weight in kg. What is the thing called? Is it called MBI or BMI? What the heck? BMI. Okay, so now user is from, have to make sure it's from our created class, because if you type user, that is actually other libraries that actually offering the same class, but we have to use our own one lah, basically. Right? After it, importing Java utilities. Then let's just give it some names. First one, give it myself. And second thing is, since I give it a double, let's put my real height in, my real kg in, and also, what's that thing? MBI. Okay, let's give it now, because that's what we're gonna calculate. Weird, but okay. Now we're gonna do a bunch of this. So to make the code more structurized, I like to do something like this. Yep, I think that's enough. We have all users, but we have to mark all the database. Come, give me some name. A, I don't know, user A, user B. It's super high lah, okay. 80.5, 40, 55.5. Okay, so now we have all these users here. Then these are our mock data lah. Let's treat it as our database code. Sorry, our database data. So to get all the user, so what should we do now? We should really return a new base response. So this response, our response, and we create a new class for this thing. And in the end, we should really return this thing. But now, okay, never mind. Been a long time. So, res- this, okay. Yep. Okay, so what is happening now is that since I'm using response entity, it's letting me set my response status right away from the code. So instead of every time it will default to 200, 200, right now I am free to choose what I want lah. So if let's say something wrong happened in the middle of the operation, I could always do something like, hey, if something something, then I will return this whole thing once again. But right now my status could be bad request. Bad request. Yeah. So that's a Spring Boot way of doing it. So right now let's do this. And since if you remember, our base response requires a few things: the timestamp, the status, and the response data. So first thing first, let's set the data itself. So if we are getting all, so that's ah okay. Yeah, this should be object, it'll be a string. Okay, so this should be string. Then get since we don't have an error, so let's just set it as null. And also we should set the status. So yeah, this this could be a bit confusing. So let's not do that. Let's not do that. Okay, set local timestamp. And okay, cool. So then this should be ready to go. And if we restart this, okay, E1 user. Oh, okay, it's failed. E1 user. Oh, ah, yes, this is what we should be getting. So first we have our response data, and this we have our error and we have timestamp. So this is what the industry is widely using lah. So as you can see, this is something that we call in Spring Boot. This is called custom DTO, so data transfer object. But right now I'm just putting it under model, so you can imagine it as your custom way of representing all the data lah. So you have your user is supposed to come in from database, and your base response is something that you use to represent very detailed information. So if it's success, then response data will have something. But if it's error, if it's something that yeah, because in terms of web development or in terms of really back-end development, when you have error of something, you are potentially exposing a weakness to the outsider. So you should not be really telling the outside world on what is the exact error that is happening internally, because that should be something that you digest yourself. But towards the external world, you should wrap it or you should package it with something more generic, so that people with people with not some good intention won't come around and destroy your app just because they know what is happening inside. So I hope we have time for that. So right now, let's quickly move on to second endpoint. So right now, since we want to work with, sorry, what do we want to work with? Header, the no header should be out of the question. Yeah, let's just quickly do add user. Never mind, let's add. So same thing, we are gonna return a base response. So you might imagine adding a new user doesn't need a base response of this complicated, right? But in reality, it does, because we have to make sure everything that returns is of this format. We have the response data field, we have the error field, we have the timestamp field. So whoever is working with your backend application, your API, you'll make their life easier lah. Because if you sometimes you respond only based on only plain string, sometimes you respond with very detailed JSON. The other side usually will be the front end developers. They will know what they're doing, and yeah, they will basically complain lah, yeah, right? So base response should be always the standard. So add new user. So this thing, yes, so this will be the first time that we're using response request body, sorry. So let's just take in a user of user, one user lah. User info. Okay, so right now, supposedly, we should be doing a little bit of checking, because we wouldn't know this new user contains what type of information, right? So we have to check if new user info dot get name, it's equals to now, or get INCN. It is just a very old way, a very not Okay, so this is the time that we should return a response entity with an error. So, yeah, we need a base response, then we call response, and create a class of it. So if it's really null, means it doesn't meet our requirement because in order to create a new user, I want to see you must have a name, you must have a height, you must have a weight. The BMI, I don't care. Maybe you have pre-calculated it and entered it, or the system will help you calculate. Okay, so uh let's just set error to static string saying information insufficient information exclamation mark telling them we're angry. Okay, response response and it should be a HTTP status of code bad request. So bad request means this is the caller's fault. So if you are using internal server error, that means we are telling the outside world saying that, hey, something is wrong with our side. But if you are saying bad request means we are telling the user, hey, something is wrong from your side. So they should really double check what are they doing lah. Right? Oh, also never forget to set the timestamp. Important. Okay, then else, if everything is good, you might be tempted to put an else here, then proceed, right? But it really shouldn't be there because if you're already handling the situation right, okay, so you can straight away return, uh, you can straight away do whatever you're supposed to do. Okay, so let's add new user info. Uh, then we should return with a or we should set the response data with something first because this is a success one. Set it with, okay, let's just give it new user, new user that's also exclamation mark. Okay, just fix my OCDC response. Okay, HTTP status. Yeah, so this is the time that we don't do okay because HTTP status, if you look at all of the list of the codes that they provide, there's actually something called created. So you can use created to tell the caller saying that, hey, this is created. So this instead of okay, okay, it's just quite general in a sense. Yeah. Okay, so no more red lines, no more red lines, no more error. So let's run this. Never mind. I want to verify that this is added. So for each, I'm gonna do system. It is just a very simple way to tell Java to print out every code that we have, everything that we have under this array list, this list. So instead of you writing all the code yourself, this is something I believe coming with Java 11 or 17. It's called Lambda expression. So, yep, quite, quite useful to know. Oh, someone say I should use float or instead of double, right? Never mind lah. Actually, in reality, both of that are not. If you really want something very accurate, especially when dealing with money, right? Because if you go and search for it, double has a very big flaw in terms of programming languages. Because the bit that double uses has a trailing number. So in the long term, in the long run, this will not make any measurement be as accurate as you think lah. So really, the thing in Java we should be using big decimal, but That's a bit overkill since this is just a foundation exposure for you guys. But that's something to know, right? So a lot of things. Yeah, there's a lot of things. So let's have a new endpoint, and this endpoint should be called host and user. Then right now, we should really care about what we put inside the body now, because previously we're just using param. Param is something like a equals to 1 and b equals to 2. So this is called query parameters. So parameters we have actually used it before. So if you look at here, we have the message is one query parameter. We have the put. So the info here is also one query parameter. So in post request, usually we will not be using query parameters. We'll instead be using request body right away. So for this request body, you have to follow exactly what is inside here. So you have name. Oh, once one trick. I just want to copy all this. Okay, and paste it here. Okay, so let's call it new user, and the height in, yeah, I wrote in cm, but I gave 1 point something. Okay, my bad. So kg, wow, okay, 70 lah. 70 I think is quite healthy lah. Okay, now, so let's try this out. Oh, 100 internet server error. So what is going on? I think v1 user. Oh, this one is missing. Okay, so let's try again. Oh, still error. Oh, it tells us what are the error. Unsupported. Oh, yeah, I think I have not used. Oh, this should not be static either. Yeah, this should really not be. Static final means we cannot further edit this list. So we should give it just a private identifier will do. And we run again. Hey, Postman, please tell me it works. Oh, shit. I v1 user that. Uh, Let all here index of. Okay, post construct. This works. Let's rerun. Okay. Yeah. Then I guess my guess is correct. Voila. Yes. We added. So response data, new user added. So right now, let's try something fun. So let's say we put this as now. And then remember in our code, we said the get height in cm should not be null, right? So let's do this. And yeah, it should give us a null of response data, means there is nothing the server can say about this. There's nothing good the server can say about this, but something bad server can say is insufficient information. So the front end's gonna figure out, hey, what are the things that I have missed out, or they can communicate with the back end developers lah. So yep, communication is also quite important. So that's about it. That's about it, and that's good to know. Okay, then right now I think let's just go with we're a bit out of time here. So let's just quickly expose you guys to server package. How do we actually use it? Just to do that, I want to have another get mapping of get BMI. Never mind. Let me get good. So quickly place response, calculate EM. So this one I should use as param of user string. Okay, then for this, since yeah, you might be seeing a lot of code in each of these endpoint, right? A lot of code, a lot of code. But actually, the good practice is this code should not be inside controller. So the Spring MVC, what are the architecture is telling us is we are trying to separate the responsibilities to other parts lah. Then all of the parts will make up this whole application. So instead of telling controller to do all the calculation, we pass it to something we call service. So I just want to quickly maybe okay, so user service yeah, sure, user service, user security, user service. Okay, so you can see it's showing red again. So it's telling that hey, I cannot find this class. You can create it or what? So of course we have to create it and we have to put it under service. So then maybe I should not show you guys in terms of interface now. Yeah, that would be a good idea. So let's just have a service annotation. Same thing. See, in Spring Boot, it's a lot of annotation. And I should use a public endpoint. Let's try private first. Private calculate EMI. Then I should be giving you a username. Oh, now we have an issue. How do we bring this whole list there? I'm gonna do something pretty dumb. Bear with me. It shouldn't be like this lah, but it is. I'm gonna try to find that user out. User count user is find stream filter user user dot get name equals to name, or else never mind, let's do give it an optional or or else now. Okay, something is seriously wrong here, but let's go back to the main one. Oh, uh, okay. Yeah, that's what I thought. Yes. Okay, so again, this is another I think it's another concept that it's very worth for you guys to know as well. So when you have an array list, when you have a list, you can do something like dot stream, dot filter, dot find first. All of this dot dot dot, right? You are invoking methods. And this type of programming is called declarative programming. So it is something that uh, I myself would prefer using that because it tells the IDE on what you want to do instead of how to do it. Yeah, you are not setting any type of flow. So it's actually making everything a one-liner, and it's actually pretty useful. Yeah. So if let's say found user, it's now. So I should really not be returning anything here because that would means that, right? So how should we calculate PMI again? Found user dot get height in cm divided by 100. So max dot power and for times with the found user dot weight in kilogram. Right? Okay. Ah, okay. Yep, correct. Alright. Is double capable of giving now? Sure. Okay, since now we have the the service class ready. So, oh shit, when we get back to here, you can see the user service is there, ready for use. But in Spring Boot, one more thing is you need to have auto wired. So it's telling Spring that, hey, this thing annotated with service, I want you to use it and I want you to load it first on the startup lah. So it's a bit complicated, so I'm not gonna go through that. So just remember it as auto wired is something is a pass in Spring Boot. And after that, I'm gonna invoke my user service. I'm gonna invoke that method, calculate. Oh, it's not exposed, so it should be public actually. So calculate PMI. I'm gonna pass my whole list over there and the username. And this thing, I should really store it in a double user PMI. And if this PMI is null, then I should not be returning success. I should say something like "Hmm, again, set a timestamp first. Now, and I should set error saying that user not found. Okay, response. This time, this should be internal server error, right? Because for all we know, maybe it's something wrong with user service that we could not find the user. Maybe the caller is giving us legit information, right? So then else, which is the business as usual, we're gonna do response dot set response data. And yeah, let's just go a bit fancy. Yep, let's just do the same thing here. Should have been now, right? Yep. Yeah, I know what to do now. We should really return the user instead. Yeah, yeah. Really. Then found user dot set UMI. Turn back the found user. Yeah, of course. Something's wrong here. User, what name should we give it? Um, sorry. We should put strong. Right. So hope it works. Hope it works now. Another endpoint. I can name it BMI. Just be a name, username. Okay. Let's do mine. Oh, user not found. Why? Stack H, right? Uh-huh. Mm. Okay. I should not compare. I should not really compare this with. Alright, right. Cool, cool, cool. Maybe get name equals ignore case. Yeah. Oh shit. Time is almost up. But yeah, be very quick. Yes, we got it. So name Zheng Hao, blah blah blah. Okay, for some reason the calculation is just the height is not correct. So yeah. That explains. That explains. But I believe the calculation is correct. It's just that the data provided is off the chart. Okay, so I think that's about it. Yeah, I think that's really just something that I really want to expose you guys to. We have controller, we have model, we have service, but actually we have much more than that. And yeah, I think this type of things you can find it over at YouTube, find it over at Stack Overflow, different platforms. Just that keep in mind that everyone has their own preference lah. So don't get overwhelmed by even me, right? Don't get overwhelmed by my preferred standard. You can have your own standard. You can talk to other people in the same industry, go join some events or something like this. Then you can talk to people about this. So yeah, I hope this helps. And yeah, so far, is there any questions? I think we can have a maybe a 5 minutes for question lah. Wait, there's a lot of things. Yeah, request parameter. There's also something called query param, if I'm not mistaken. Eh? Variable. Yep. So get post code delete. It's actually reflecting to CRUD operation. Create, read, update. Yeah. So I very unfortunately today we don't have time to go into databases, but yeah, with databases I can show you how model this whole package work more perfectly. But right now it's just this way. So it's just a very simple one. Okay. So yeah, that's all from my side. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope the second half was not too boring because I know without the context to all of these syntaxes, you will feel very lost one. For sure, for sure. So just take as much as you can, and yeah, can stay tuned for next event lah. Maybe Coffee will host the next one. Right. Okay, 5:54. I think we can end a bit early today if you have no questions. If you do, feel free to point it out in the Telegram group. Wow, YouTube, don't want lah. Wow, YouTuber to be. Okay, never mind. Yeah, you guys are aware that we have the Telegram group, right? So let me maybe open it up. Yes. Where is it? Ah, oh, sorry, not this one. Mama, yes. So this Telegram group, make use of it. I believe you can find me over there.